right? The intersubjectivity is created because we hear the same stories repeated and repeated and repeated. And when we hear those same stories repeated and repeated and repeated, they come to be true.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's me once again, Antonio Rigor. And I think it's been a month already since I uploaded my last content here in YouTube. Siguro dahil na rin sobrang busy. Ang daming academic related things na ginagawa dito sa St. Mary's University. At the same time, sa busy schedules and loaded schedules sa Philippines. I'm filming this because I want to bring you to my class tomorrow. Para naman makita nyo kung ano yung nangyayari sa class ko. At the same time paano yung class setup sa St. Mary's University sa Canada. For those of you na bago, exchange student ba ako dito sa Canada for 1 semester. Yeah. Just to let you know na rin, spring season na po dito sa Canada. Nag-end po yung winter season last March 13 and we jumped to spring season last March 14 and nagkaroon po ng additional 1 hour time gap, bali 13 hours time gap na sa Philippines and Canada. Ganun. So I'm preparing for my class tomorrow kasi meron kaming assignment na gagawin. And at the same time, meron kaming research paper na kailangan tapusin sa international human rights. That's why I have to prepare tonight. And sabi ko nga, I will let you experience or I will show you kung ano yung mga nangyayari sa classroom setup sa Canada. But ang dilim. So yeah, good night everyone. Hope to see you tomorrow. Bye-bye for this time. Hi everyone.
Napunta na ako sa klase ko.
Yeah guys, I'm already here in my class.
Intrinsically valuable. No matter what happens, there's a value to this, and if we lose it, when their eyes finally are open to the hazards and the dangers and the negative repercussions of capitalism, right? And that, what he's talking about there, is the shift in the intersubjectivity, right? Karl Marx knew of that shift of intersubjectivity. He wasn't using those words, but he was using that idea when he spoke about that. Okay? Now you want to hear something interesting? I remember reading that excerpt in the Communist Manifesto probably 15, 20 years ago, right? So guess what I thought? I said, I'm going to go to the bookstore and buy the Communist Manifesto, right? Went to chapters, wasn't in the chapters. Went to 3 different used bookstores in Halifax. Did I find the Communist Manifesto? No, I didn't find the Communist Manifesto. Why is that? Right? Because people don't want that story out there. We want one story. Right? That's an interesting idea. Now I bet you if I was going to a Chinese bookstore, I might find the Communist Manifesto relatively easily. Right? So all of a sudden we're looking at a different story being told. Okay? Although I think that story is getting shifted a little bit from capitalism anyway. Right? Okay. How we do is this idea of power that, or when I talk about the intersubjectivity, right? The intersubjectivity is created because we hear the same stories repeated and repeated and repeated. And when we hear those same stories repeated and repeated and repeated, they come to be true. Okay? So that's this intersubjectivity, and that's where censorship comes in, right? And that's where economic censorship comes in. Neoliberal capitalism is, it's reinforcing the same narrative. You've heard that word narrative. It's kind of like the same story over and over and over again, right? So whoever controls that narrative is controlling the way that people think. They control the way that people act, right? So when you hear the story back in the olden days, remember we spoke about the church having so much power and we drew the line on the map. People were told that the church was the ruling power of the world, right? And, nowadays we're told that money is the ruling power of the world, right? But one of the things that we don't, and that's part of the class that I teach, it's about recognizing the structures that exist and saying, okay, as you have, what can I do if those are the structures? How can I act to change those structures, right? So I often talk about creeping normalcy. Right? This idea of you need to make very small changes to reach a goal. Okay? Some people call it like climbing Mount Improbable or evolution. Evolutionary change is more sustainable than revolutionary change. Okay? So a paradigm shift can only happen when you shift the intersubjectivity. Okay? So here's the question. How do you shift this intersubjectivity? Everybody is in here believing a certain thing. They're listening to one story. The story that's told by neoliberal hegemonic capitalism, let's say. Okay? So remember, I've said in class, like, you don't know the extent of what you don't know. Right? And so we don't know what exists outside there. We don't know what a world would look like without competition. We don't know what a world would look like without capitalism. We have no way of understanding that. Our brain is so structured in understanding the world as we see it. Okay? But what we can do, and this, and it seems almost useless. Okay, it seems almost useless. What I'm proposing is the change. Okay, but hear me out. Okay, so one of the things that we can do is we can challenge this one story. Right? If we're pursuing diversity, the one story of success, as Marjorie's told us, the one story of success is to go out into the workforce and earn money and participate in the economy and all the rest of that. That's one story of success. What's another story of success? Right? Can you be spiritually successful? Right? But we don't hear those stories. Right? Can you define your own version of success? But now, one of the things that we need to do is we need to be able to tell the story of that success, right? And when we tell the story of that success, we show people another way of being in the world, okay? So imagine that this is your circle of certainty. If we tell someone another story, right, they can look outside of the one story that they're told to live, and they can see a different world according to the story that's been told. Okay? So when you look at the intrinsic value of diversity, it also comes to the stories of like diverse stories of success that don't include participating within the structures that have been imposed on us, right? And if we can see diversity in those stories, we start poking more holes in this discursive power, okay? And remember, intersubjectivity is the collective belief in something that is true, right? So remember, back in the olden days, long time ago, everybody thought that the world was flat, right? The world was flat. If you went up to somebody 2,000, maybe a little bit more, 2,500 years ago, and said to them, oh, no, the world isn't flat, the world's round, right? They would think you were absolutely crazy, right? They would think you were crazy, right? And nowadays, when someone says to you, oh no, the earth is flat, right? We go, no, you must be crazy, right? Because it's not flat, it's round, right? So, but we need to be able to shift that intersubjectivity. So the first people that started talking about the world being round, they were challenging that one story. Everybody had one story, the earth is flat. But then somebody said, you know, I looked through the telescope and, you know, the world looks like it's round. Or other planets are round. Why would all the other planets be round and Earth be flat? Right? So all of a sudden, the challenging of that story becomes the thing. Now, how we can tell different stories, right? So, but one of the things that I talk about, anyone remember what this is? Axiological preferences? This is a quiz. Everyone's failing right now. Or another word, praxis. Are you there, Julia? Do you know any of these terms? She's like, my mic's not working, Shane. Can she even see the board? No? Okay. So axiological preferences and praxis.
Yeah, I found it.
Oh, she found it, okay.
Is there choices that reflect your values?
That's right, the choices that reflect your values. Okay? So here's the question that you ask yourself. Do I value diversity? Do I value diversity? Right? If you value diversity, then you make choices that represent your valuing of diversity. Right? So every single day, you make choices. Right? You make choices, and either your choice can be to value diversity or not value diversity. Right? And you know, when you think about, you know, going to the store and buying something, that choice reflects your values, right? So, you know, and when we think about which stories do we listen to, right? Do we listen to the one story, or do we find a story that reflects diversity? Do I listen to a woman's story? Do I listen to an ethnic minority's story and hear what they say, right? So there's lots of options, and one of the things that's interesting is, you know, with the internet, right, there's lots of opportunity for people to tell stories, right? The choice then becomes, do you tell the story of, oh, I went to the store and bought my fancy Starbucks coffee, and, you know, I went and got a manicure and a pedicure and all those kinds of things. That's a story, right? But that story is the story of consumption. That's the story of buying into neoliberal capitalism and versions of success, right? Or you could tell the story of, I planted a tree today, right? for me, planting a tree is pretty cool, right? Why am I planting the tree? I'm planting the tree because planting that tree is an act against, in global warming or whatever it happens to be, right? That's a story that promotes diversity, right? So when you think about, the northern right whales, remember we Googled northern right whales in class? And that story speaks about there's 400 of them left in the world, right? And 8 of them died last year. How's that not the most important story, right? Because we're trying to silence that story. As long as the ship that's bringing the stuff to Canada that killed that whale because it crashed into it, as long as I get my cheap stuff here in Canada so that I can get my fancy manicure, I'm picking on manicures today, I guess, or who did the makeup, the Books Without Words makeup story? There we go. There's a good one. That was a great story, right? That told a different story. That challenged that story. Okay, good.
And the class is done. And this is the atrium building. What's this?
Thank you.